Good morning. It's Friday, January the 8th, and this is The Drill. Thank you. The prayer of the day from the book titled Daily Declarations for Spiritual Warfare. Quote, I am ready to help you, so there is no weapon that is formed against you that will be successful. I have established you in my righteousness, and all forms of demonic oppression are far away from you. Don't be afraid of Satan's show of force, because I am with you. I have not given you a spirit of fear. I have given to you all my power through my Holy Spirit. I have filled you with my love, and have given to you a sound mind. Stay secured in me. Don't be afraid of Satan's intimidation. Don't worry about whether you have enough strength for the battles you must fight. You are my beloved child, and I have blessed you with every spiritual blessing from my place in heaven. I have delivered you from the power of darkness and have translated you into my kingdom where I dwell with my dear Son. Lord, you are my fortress. I live under your protection, and I rest in your powerful shadow. When I am in trouble, I will call out to you, and you will answer me with your arm of protection. You will honor me and give me long life with your saving power. Isaiah 54:17, John 4:4, Colossians 1:13. Unquote. Amen. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host and the only true conservative in the United States today. Today, an initial analysis of the elections and a look ahead. All that when I come back. Thank you. Here's what's happened and where we stand in the country politically. Yesterday, President Trump went ahead and conceded and said there's going to be a smooth transition, peaceful transition of power on the 20th. So if Trump says it, I believe it. Just that simple. So where we stand as far as the president is concerned is the Biden administration will take over on the 20th, will be sworn in. The Senate, those races, two races in Georgia have been decided, and the Senate is now 50-50. Don't let anyone convince you that the Senate is in the control of the Democrats. It is not. It is a tie. In order for the Senate, for the left to get anything through the Senate, they need every single senator to sign on. That's the slimmest of slim majorities. Now, unfortunately, the Republicans have the same problem. Yes, they're a tie, so that means that Kamala Harris is the tiebreaker, and she's a Democrat, etc. But again, all intents and purposes, it's a tie. If one Democrat, if it's a close race, and one Democrat steps across the line and joins Republicans in blocking something, it's done. So it's razor thin. In the House, the Republicans have gained seats. A lot of seats, and again, the Democrats have a razor-thin majority in the House. The Republicans picked up governorships and have more, a majority of the governorships in this country. They also have a majority of the legislatures, state legislatures in this country. That's particularly important for redistricting purposes. So this is 2020 is a year of census. And right after the census comes redistricting. So in the next 6 months, year, whatever, redistricting is going to occur. And so we expect that there's going to be more Republican districts. And that's going to bode well for 2022. And that election process is going to start in earnest in 1 year. And that's important because the left has a very ambitious agenda. They want to add 2 more states to the union so that they can get 4 more senators that they are assuming are going to be Democrats. and that those senators will then be able to make sure that the Supreme Court, has 14 justices, and thereby be able to have a majority of lefties on the court. And then they have other things I'm sure that they want to do as well, ambition-wise. First thing that you got to think about is that the pressure is always on the left, always. The left is looking for paradise. That's what the Marxists have wanted. Post-Marxists want the same thing, paradise. That's a tremendous amount of pressure. And it's one thing if they're out of power and struggling to get into power. But once they've gotten into power, now the pressure really mounts for them. They're expected. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden are expected to produce. Now, one of the big barriers for the left is not the Republicans, it's the left itself. Because the left is fragmented into black caucuses and Hispanic caucuses and women's caucuses. And so they have a large different constituencies that they have to satisfy. And those constituencies very often work at cross purposes. For instance, when Joe Biden was picking nominees for various cabinet positions, people in the Black Caucus were upset. They didn't like it. The same thing with Governor Newsom. Governor Newsom is in charge, and when Kamala Harris was ran for president, there left a vacancy, a Senate vacancy. So Newsom picked a Hispanic to be to take her place. So a so-called black community leader actually politically threatened the governor. You better watch yourself, Governor Newsom, because he was not happy. As far as he was concerned, it should have been a black person that got that position. So the left is increasing, and it will be just getting worse and worse, because really they only have 1 year to get all these things done. If they're going to add states to the union, they have to first get Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. They have to have their own elections, and it's like an initiative. So they'll have to have a ballot initiative, and they will have to vote to go ahead and become states. That takes time. You're going to have to set up the election. When is the election going to occur? And campaigns, and et cetera. The left can't just snap its fingers and make it happen. After those elections occur, if both of them say, yes, we want to be states, then Congress has to act. So it has to be approved in both the House and the Senate. Then it can be done. After that, then those new states, they'll have to have governors. There may very well end up being elections. As a matter of fact, how else are you going to do it? Congress can't appoint governors. The states will have to elect governors, and that will take time. So in short, what I'm saying is none of this is going to get done in a year. They're a very, very ambitious program. It's too bad that Chuck Schumer shot his mouth off and said nothing is off the table. Okay, because now all he's done is raise expectations amongst his own. They're all now looking at him. He's under a microscope. He's sweating. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if secretly he was hoping that Donald Trump would win. Because I think he probably likes being in the opposition a heck of a lot more than he likes being the party in power. Because it brings all kinds of problems and, like I said, a whole lot of pressure. So there's all during the campaign, the Senate campaign and whatnot, there's a lot of people saying, including President Trump, oh, it's going to be a terrible, horrible disaster if the Democrats take power. No such thing. Like I said, they have so many hurdles they've got to overcome, and they have a very limited amount of time to do it. And then there's also the prospect of court challenges. If the Democrats don't do things strictly according to Hoyle, I would expect that Republicans, if not in the House and the Senate, then Republican governors and legislators will sue. That slows the process down even more. So I doubt that in a year from now we're going to see 14 senators, unless the left is able to, again, might makes right and the ends justify the means, and cheat their way to 14 judges or justices. It's nothing that we need to be really down in the mouth about. We also, again, 2022, the consensus seems to be that the Republicans will take the House, take it back. Apparently, the Senate is kind of up for grabs. Along the lines of talking about elections again, one of the things that I've discovered recently in thinking about things as far as elections are concerned was I was thinking about the disconnect that exists between the populace and the people that are supposed to be representing the populace, and why it is they don't seem to, why is there that disconnect? We elect people to go and represent us, and they get to Washington and they don't do it. They say, I want a border wall, I want to get rid of Planned Parenthood, and nothing happens. I want a balanced budget, nothing happens. Why? Again, the disconnect I've discovered is really because of the parties. The biggest threat to our democracy is not socialism, it's not capitalism, it's the party system. When you elect somebody, as a matter of common sense, you're electing that person in Congress to represent you, either in a district or in your state. That's what they're there for. Again, as a matter of common sense. When again, also as a matter of common sense and experience, when your representative gets to Washington, one of the first things that happens is that he or she is given a committee assignment. They're on a committee or subcommittee. Okay? Now, when that happens, they are no longer representing you. They are representing the party, whether it's Democrat or Republican. And that's exactly the moment when everything goes wrong. They're going to do what they're told to do and vote the way they're told to vote by the committee chairman and subcommittee chairman. The political parties, their priorities aren't the same as my priorities or your priorities. My priorities and your priorities may be along the lines of we need more, let's say, we need government contracts, or let's say setting up a Navy base so that we can have more jobs. Or it may be just money for infrastructure, transportation, paving the roads. But the party's concern is always the same, and that is raise money to get votes. Get votes to raise money. That's all it is. It's this vicious cycle of raising money, getting votes, raising money, getting votes. So the party always looks at everything through that prism. If we support this, how is that going to affect fundraising and vote getting? If we do that, same thing. How is that going to affect fundraising and vote getting? This is the reason that the Republican Party, the biggest example or analogy of the disconnect is the border. The Republican National Committee knows that the issue of the border is a loser for the Republican National Committee, that it will cost them money and it will cost them votes. So how are they going to deal with it? The only way to deal with it is to make it go away, and the only way to make it go away is to promote and pass an amnesty package. Look for something like that during Biden's term, by the way. An amnesty package. Is amnesty good for the country? Nope, not at all. Not good for the constituents, and the constituents don't want it, especially Hispanic constituents. And why that is, that's a discussion for another time. So it's not good, but it's going to be done anyways. Why? Because it's good for the party. Again, amnesty The border is no longer an issue, and the Republican National Committee can go about safely raising money and getting votes. So that's all they look at. How is this going to affect our ability to raise money and get votes? So what can we do about it? What can you and I do about it? What you and I can do is we can, when their campaign starts up again in a year from now, in earnest, that's when it'll start up in earnest. All these candidates for various political offices are going to be campaigning. Make sure you get with those people. Call those people that are campaigning. Call them, write them. If they're on a talk show and you want to call into that talk show and tell them, don't ask, tell them, I expect that you are going to go to Washington if you get elected and refuse any offers of committee assignments. And don't be afraid to tell them why, because if you accept committee assignments, then you will no longer be, in effect, representing me. You will be representing only the Republican Party, and I will not have that. And if you go to Washington, you accept a committee assignment anyhow, threaten them. Tell them, I will immediately campaign to have you recalled. Immediately. That's what you and I can do. Because ultimately we have the power. And along those lines, one of the things that we should be looking to do, every person in this country should be looking to make it easier to recall our representatives. Right now it's ridiculous. In the state of California, to get it on the ballot, to get a recall on the ballot, takes $1 million. Okay, and then, of course, if you get it on the ballot, you have to campaign. You have to have advertising, and that's another $1 million, $2 million, $3 million or more if you want to be successful. That's ridiculous. That should not happen. The people, if we're going to actually be in charge and running this country, should be able to offer up recalls at a moment's notice. We should have in this country, every election cycle, the vast majority of our so-called representatives should be under the threat of recall. They should be facing a recall. It should be that easy. Right now, again, you got to go out and scare up money so you can get enough signatures, so you can get it on the ballot, so you can scare up money, so you can get people to vote for it. And one of the ways to deal with that is make the government pay for it. Let's get initiatives, or go to your legislators and tell them, I want a bill passed and signed by the governor that will have the government pick up the tab for all the expenses associated with recalling a politician. I think there's a little bit of irony there, but I think it's also the ultimate check and balance. Everybody that goes to Washington is going to know that they cannot sit comfortably in their seat. They're going to have to look over their shoulders every second, every minute. And if they turn themselves over to the power and authority of their political party, that there will be consequences, and those consequences will be swift and sure. When I come back, analyzing and discussing the year ahead. Thank you. So in the year coming, one of the things that I'm going to be doing is analyzing the Trump administration and I'm a Trump supporter, love Trump, can't get enough of Trump, but he made his share of mistakes. One of the biggest mistakes that he made was in the people he chose to surround himself with, in politically speaking. And so I'm going to go more into details with that. Most pundits are in a hurry to conduct their analysis. They want to analyze political campaigns before they've ever finished, analyze political or administrations, let's say, presidential administrations, before they've concluded. This is now the time to conduct the analysis. not while it's going on, because you don't know what's coming. You don't know what the person is going to do that may negate whatever it is that you just said. So this is the time to start doing that kind of analysis. Analyzing, I'm going to be in the future looking at analyzing elections in general, how it is that we elect our officials, what improvements that can be made in that direction. I already talked about that in the previous segment. I gave you a hint about that, about recalling, making it easier to recall politicians and demanding that they stay away from committee assignments. But there'll be further discussions of that. There's also going to be a lot more criticism of so-called right-wing pundits. There's a whole bunch, and perhaps every one of them, on the radio. Hugh Hewitt is what I call king of the neutrals or king of the zeros, that are neutral. That pretend to be conservative, but aren't really conservative. They're neutral. They analyze everything from a neutral perspective because they've been brainwashed by the left to believe that neutrality is a way that's going to give you more integrity and more credibility and more believability. That's not true. But I'll go into that in more detail as we go along in this year. So, in general, I'm going to also be talking about the things that I'm expecting from the Democrats, the new administration, and how I'm going to personally handle the idea of having an incompetent criminal in charge of the executive branch of the federal government. So, those are some of the things that I'm going to be looking to discuss in the future. I'm also considering a second podcast that I'll have. This one, The Drill, I'm considering having it be for discussion of more general topics. I have a lot of hints and tips from personal experience on certain things that I'd like to, that have nothing to do with politics. For instance, if you've got to sue your boss. I had worked for a major corporation, and I ended up suing them all by myself. It's called in pro per, and relating those experiences and giving people hints and tips in terms of what to expect in that kind of a situation. So those kinds of discussions, little inside, just the things that I've learned throughout life. And then for politics, creating a new podcast called The True Conservative, because it occurs to me as I've seen the elections progress that there's really no conservatives anymore. Nobody refers to themselves as a conservative. They either call themselves center-right or they're a Trump supporter. For the past 4 years, it's really been Trump supporters versus the socialists. And so my job, it seems clear, is to explain what it means to be a true conservative and, most importantly, why that's important. Why we need to have true conservatives. So, now more specifically on the next episode, again along the lines of voting, vote for, not against. What I consider to be the biggest threat to our republic: sliding scale healthcare, punish your enemies, not yourself. And that concludes another episode of The Drill. Be honest, be smart, and be beautiful. I'm Ron, and that's The Drill.